Everybody, and welcome into the Alabama pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm your host, Simone Eli, alongside Nick Alvarez this morning. Nick, it's week 5 of the college football season. We only had to wait till week 5 to actually feel some fall weather, but I feel like it's in full force, man. It feels wonderful. I made chili. This is what I've been waiting for. Finally, some weather to go around with this football season.
Yeah, I mean, first off, thanks for having me. And I walked outside of my hotel in Arkansas today, and it was like 50. I'm like, okay, I can get down with this. Like, I need a hoodie. Like that
Yes.
feels right.
That's what I'm
Yes, that
saying.
time
I
of
mean, I'm
year.
inside, but I wanted to represent the weather, so I'm wearing a jacket just to go with the theme. Fall is here. Thank you, Jesus. We're excited about that. All right, guys, this is the Bama pregame show. A top 20 matchup in Fayetteville today. A second-ranked Alabama is taking on 20th-ranked Arkansas. A big blockbuster SEC matchup right here early in the season in Week 5. Alabama on the road, Nick. The overall view of this game that you have as you've prepared to cover it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of gonna get to see the team that Alabama actually is this season. Kind of hard to gauge the first couple weeks. I mean, like really close, great game in Texas. That was great entertainment, but some question marks. And then Alabama has handled all the other opponents that you would expect them to. Should this team be as good as it wants to be? Saban's mentioned the last couple weeks that he's getting glimpses of Alabama football. Like they're gonna need a lot of it today with kind of the environment they're gonna be in, with how good Arkansas is, which is nothing new, but they're still pretty good this year, even after Texas A&M lost. Like, there's a lot we're going to find out about the tie today and the next couple of weeks.
No doubt about that. It's definitely the tough stretch beginning for Alabama. This game is the 2:30 CBS game kickoff in Arkansas. This is the beginning of the tough stretch. Alabama on the road today at Texas A&M, at home against against Arkansas, at home against Texas A&M next week, and then at Tennessee for the third Saturday in October. Nick, how important is it to get this win to begin the momentum for this 3-game stretch that Alabama is about to have here in the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Nick Saban's been talking about it the last couple of weeks, is he wants like the hateful competitors back on the Alabama roster. Michael Casagrande, great piece on AL.com now, kind of looking at back from Ronaldo McClain, some of the other guys from years past. Like, who are those guys on this current Tide team? Will Anderson has talked a lot about it. Bryce Young seems more of like a quiet leader. Like, you're going to have that environment today that the Tide struggled with in Austin, like very much so. That might not be 105,000 people, but they're going to pack that stadium.
Yeah.
So like Alabama needs to figure out like, okay, who are we relying on if it's not, Bryce Young in a 2-minute drill?
Yeah. Alabama's last 5 games, dating back to last year, 4-1. Obviously, the loss at Texas A&M a year ago. Going on the road in the SEC and being successful, Nick, is really the only way that you can not only be successful in the SEC, but be successful nationally. Nick Saban knows that. And I feel like it's something that he tries to impress upon his group year in and year out is we have to go into these tough environments and we have to get it done. When you look at what happened last year in this game, how telling do you feel like that is to what we could potentially see? I'm jumping around a little bit in the show, but when it comes to this, for Alabama, maybe not a rivalry, but Alabama's everyone's rivalry, if you will.
Yeah.
Arkansas is so hungry for this win. I mean, it would just be program changing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's like the target that Alabama's built for itself over the last, part of the dynasty here. But I think what Alabama needs to show is that they don't need to show that they're, the 15-0 dominant team that's going to run away with everything. Like, they don't have to do that. That's probably too high a mark for this team.
Sure.
What they do need to show is like they're not going to be struggling in these games. Like, they're not going to need heroics. They're not going to need, a freak injury to a starting quarterback that's going to like carry them. Because, like you talk to evaluators, you talk to people, like it feels like every team kind of knows like, oh, this is a good year to get Alabama. And like that's something that Alabama fans won't want to hear. And the only way you change that is, you do something that Alabama is also known for doing. Go into a big game. Everyone maybe is expecting that big upset, and then you put up 40 on them and you walk out the stadium. So like I there's kind of a line here, and I think that Alabama could answer it today. Right? We can kind of get into some of the specifics in a bit, but like there's kind of like a general like how good, where are we kind of adjusting the expectation for this team, and that's kind of has to come in today.
No doubt about that. If you're just tuning in, this is the Alabama pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. Nick Alvarez, Simone Eli. Week 5 of the season, Alabama at 20th ranked Arkansas. A part of who gets the Razorbacks going is KJ Jefferson. I feel like we've been talking about this guy for like 10 years. I mean, so this is like this is just somebody that has been a part of this program what seems like year in and year out. Last year against Alabama, he had a prolific game. This was a 42-35 game. He was 22 of 30, 3 touchdowns, almost 330 in the air. Nick, how important is it to contain KJ Jefferson?
Yeah, it's the entire game for Alabama, I think. Like, if you look at last year, obviously Arkansas maybe had some better weapons in the passing game than they do this year, but KJ Jefferson can run. Saban talked about that all week. He couldn't think of an actual comparison for this player. That might just be him being Nick Saban, but like, it's also really hard to kind of find someone in the SEC that's going to be such a schemed runner while also having that escapability, while also being able to chuck it downfield kind of at
Mhm.
will. And I think when Alabama looks at last year, like, Alabama's going to have, going into every game, the expectation of, oh, we're supposed to win. Another team has to play their best.
Yeah,
KJ Jefferson's already played his best in Bryant-Denny Stadium. The
yeah.
fact that he's going to have the home fans here, or right after the Texas A&M game last week, he started talking about, hey, we're focusing on Alabama right now. Granted, they lost that game and there were some bad turnovers from him, but like, that just shows kind of the mindset he's had. And, a lot of people have probably had this game circled down here.
Yep. On the other side of the ball, let's talk about Alabama's offense here. Something big topic of discussion is the Bama injuries that we've seen. We're kind of been waiting to see a couple of these guys come back, Nick. How important could this be when it comes to Alabama's offensive weapons and maybe some injuries finally falling off the board for Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Alabama's season so far, offensively, aside from Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs, it's kind of been like, who's the receiver, who's the pass catcher each week that's going to stand out. There hasn't been one to really separate himself, whether it's not being able to get open consistently or some of that's just not in their games. Tyler Harrell from Louisville was brought in to be that downfield spacer. He hasn't been on the field yet, so they had to get a little more creative in getting that deep pass going. We saw it last week against Vanderbilt. So I think the injured receivers coming back, Tyler Harrell, JoJo Earl, potentially Aaron Anderson, another freshman, like, they can come in and just provide some of the relief on Bryce Young, can add some things to the passing game. Because I have to say, this week, like, Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't, like, they didn't plan on Jahmyr Gibbs getting, a majority of his snaps in the slot or outside.
Mhm.
Like, he's a
Sure.
running back, and
Yeah.
they have depth at that position, so that's helped for that. But it's because they've had a lack of at the wide receiver position.
Yep.
So getting those guys in, I mean, it's going to help a lot to get some balance in the offense.
Even despite not knowing who really is like Bryce Young's main target, the offensive numbers have been impressive. We got a couple of graphics here to show you. Bryce Young has just, I mean, this is the numbers against Vanderbilt. I mean, this is the guy, obviously, who won a Heisman a year ago, putting up Heisman-like numbers in this game. And I understand that it's Vanderbilt, but still, he is totally delivering week in and week out, Nick, even with the question marks that we have seen offensively for the Tide.
100%. I mean, it's a testament to Bryce Young and how much he's grown from his Heisman winning season. Like, you saw the drive in Austin. You saw some of the 2-minute drives. Like, Terry Bowden called Bryce Young getting the ball on the 7-yard line with like a minute 50 left his heaven. Like, everyone knows that Bryce Young, when it has to happen, gets it going. Not to say
Yeah.
that it drops off, but like, he just kind of has that ability to
Yeah.
buy time in the pocket, not just look to run. And I mean, it's really impressive. And, Alabama fans can have questions about the play calling. They can have questions about that. Well, Bryce says he's involved with it. Like, Bryce is in tune with his offense. He is this offense right now.
Yes.
So, like, it's a joy to watch kind of every week,
Yes.
frankly.
It certainly is. On the other side of the ball, one guy who's going to be looking to slow down Bryce as much as possible is a familiar face in Arkansas linebacker Drew Sanders, a guy who played for Alabama, would be probably a star at Alabama right now, transfers to Arkansas. Nick, what do you know about this situation? It's just from the outside looking in, this is just not something that you see very often, to have someone leave the premier program that Alabama is, especially to go in conference and then be as good as he is. He's leading the SEC in sacks. He's second leader with tackles and tackles for loss. I mean, this is a guy who's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're gonna maybe see a little bit more of it with the transfer portal. Like, it's just kind of how it is. Like, there's kind of an open window, an open gate going and flowing between these top programs. And yeah, we are used to seeing Alabama get, Jahmyr Gibbs, the Jermaine Burton, Eli Ricks, and we're not thinking that they're going to lose anyone. Well, Drew Sanders was kind of a 5-star coming out of high school. He had that talent, like a lot of players in Alabama, though. They're lower on the depth chart just because that's how the way the program works. Saban, used the term "not seeing the light" a couple weeks ago in regards to kind of a veteran backup transferring. I'm not saying he was talking about Drew directly, but like, players like that, they
Yeah.
look for opportunity. And, he probably would have played inside of Alabama. At least that's what the coaches said this week. And I mean, he found his opportunity. He found a spot for him to thrive. And while it's rare for Alabama, I mean, he should be commended for it.
No doubt about that. Defensively for Alabama, there have been moments where it seems like, okay, question marks here. Against Texas, there's some mental mistakes, something that we don't really see from that side of the ball in Alabama, and guys like Will Anderson Jr. But they're second nationally in total defensive yards per game. And Nick, I feel like that's kind of been like a quiet stat. When I looked that up this past week, I was kind of surprised to see that, because it's not, again, Alabama has been dominant, but it's not like it's the Tide defenses of the past.
Yeah, and I'll throw another stat at you that I can't wrap my head around. Alabama's only allowed 2 touchdowns this year. Both are rushing touchdowns, and I think one of them was like the backups were in. Like, yeah, like it very much all the stats are there except for one. What I think is the thing that's kind of causing a disconnect for fans: turnovers. There's only been
Yeah.
one turnover this year. Will Anderson's pick six, which was great, and we've talked about that a bunch. But Alabama has had opportunities for some other ones, and they haven't gotten them yet. Granted, offenses know that Alabama's rushing really and getting to the quarterback, so they're doing quick passes. They're doing kind of things to take some of the pressure off their quarterback and their ball carriers. That being said, Alabama still needs to start forcing turnovers. Like, if you want to kind of dissect some of the issues on this team, like, well, how do you take some pressure on the offense? Well, let's do what they did against ULM. Have insane punt return game. Have a great defense that's getting you the ball on the other side of the field. Then you can give the offense time to work. I think kind of getting the cornerbacks finally figured out might help with that. We're still seeing, 1 or 2 times a game an opposing quarterback is throwing that deep shoulder out ball to a receiver on the boundary. It's usually around midfield too, and like Alabama's corners are getting beat. So like KJ Jefferson's a guy who could make that a bigger problem today. So it's stuff like that. It's kind of on the margins as we start seeing maybe some of those turnover numbers jump up.
Nick, I want to talk about this atmosphere that Alabama's going to go into today at Arkansas. I mean, not necessarily one like the fiercest. We're talking about LSU. We're talking about going to Athens, but still, I mean, Arkansas is a program on the rise, trending upward, and has been ever since the new era in coaching there at Arkansas. How challenging could this be for Alabama on both sides of the ball, going on the road, like we saw Alabama struggle a little bit at Texas, with what felt like the atmosphere had a little bit of a hand in at times. How could this be a potential issue for the Tide on the road, really for the first time in the SEC?
I mean, I think it's something that they're going to have to prove they can handle. Like, I mean, some of the false starts were the mental errors that the team talked about, where part of it was due to crowd noise, part of it was just the atmosphere kind of rattling them. I mentioned earlier that every team this year thinks they can maybe get their best shot at Alabama. Right. Arkansas hasn't beaten Alabama, I think, in their last 14 tries, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think it's like 2004, 2006. Like, that's a long time for the people down here. Like, I got checked into my hotel last night, and the guy who checked me in was getting calls. I'm saying like, "Hey, sorry, we have no rooms. Check this hotel down the road." And I'm about 25, half an hour away from the stadium.
Yeah.
So like, this is obviously an atmosphere that's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting to watch. And for Alabama, like, this is kind of what the dynasty is known for: coming to these environments, being that hateful competitor, and then like. Players are talking about it this week, standing on the benches, looking up at the crowd, and like seeing people leave, and then looking at Coach Saban, and like he's smiling a little bit too, because he's like getting the stadium cleared out early. So like, that's a bar. I don't think that's one they have to clear today, but like, when you kind of have all of that coming in, it should lead to an exciting matchup.
No doubt about it. Saban talks a lot about 3 faces in football, Nick, not only offense, defense, but special teams. And this is a place where one particular guy, Kool-Aid McKinstry, has just been absolutely phenomenal. This is a guy I had the opportunity to cover in high school. He returned punts then. He's returning punts now for the Tide. He leads the country in total return yards. He's the next best is a huge drop off in what McKinstry is able to do. I don't think sometimes it doesn't go. It goes unnoticed unless he returns it all the way for a touchdown. But when it comes to field position, I don't think this can be overstated how important it is in what he provides this team from a special teams perspective.
For sure. And I think there are 2 things there. One, it should be applauded for Kool-Aid that like he wasn't supposed to be the starter this year. It was supposed to be JoJo Earl. He broke his foot. So that opened up a window. And like you said, like the first time I saw Kool-Aid was at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, and I think he had like 2 punt returns for a touchdown at Cram Bowl. Yeah. Like, this kid is electric with the ball in his hands. And you'll see players on the sideline, mentioned it to us this week, they'll go and like look and like ooh and ah as he kind of always breaks his first defender seemingly. I will also say, sometimes watching him catch the ball is like one of the more exciting parts of the game. Like, you don't know if it's going to kind of like shoot up his arm a little bit, like he's going to have to regather it and then make someone miss. Like, it's really exciting, which, probably for Alabama coaches, they would want, maybe the cleaner catch sometimes. Sure. But I mean, it's part of the Kool-Aid experience, I guess.
It certainly is. That guy is just an all-star. He definitely wows the crowd. So Alabama getting it done in all three phases. Can they get it done today on the road at Arkansas in Fayetteville? That's where Nick is today. He'll be covering the game, AL.com, of course. Nick, I saw a stat. I have to pull my phone out. I took a screenshot of this. I saw a stat that this today has the most ranked games in the regular season since 2017. I did not realize this. When you look in the SEC, we're talking about Kentucky, Ole Miss, both top 7 ranked team, 14th ranked team, Alabama, Arkansas. Just when you look at college football, we're seeing some quality games a lot earlier, kind of than what I feel like we have seen previously.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's transfer portal, maybe it's just like one of those years, but it seems like the parity that everyone kind of always decries, like, oh, there's none of that in college football. It's always the same top teams. Maybe there isn't. Like Alabama is the number 2 team in the country. If they don't have a great performance today, they could drop down to number 3 because Ohio State nearly overtook them last week. Like
Sure.
a lot of people are kind of open on like where the best teams or the best games in the country are. I mean, it's great. Like it provides opportunity. It probably provides more momentum for a 12-team playoff. I mean, and it's fun TV.
Yeah, it is Summit TV. We absolutely love it. Alabama and Arkansas kick off at 2:30 over on the Plains. Auburn in their 5th home game of the season. They will host LSU in a rivalry game early in the season. Nick, any final thoughts? What, if you had to pick maybe a key to the game for Alabama when it comes to leaving Fayetteville with a win today, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, aside from KJ Jefferson, which I feel like is an easy one, Alabama's offensive line has been good, has been great, but it's been pretty good, especially the last couple of weeks. They're facing a team I think is number 1 in the country with 20 sacks. We talked about Drew Sanders. Like, if Arkansas's pass rush is great, their pass defense not so good, one of the worst in the SEC. So it's kind of an interesting kind of a matchup there. If they can give Bryce Young time, maybe Alabama can get some of those deep balls while proving they can generate them too. Kind of an interesting style contrast right there.
No doubt about it. 2:30 kickoff. Nick Alvarez, we appreciate all of your insight. One of the best in the business. Obviously, a lot going into this one, a lot riding on this one. Alabama looking to make a statement in the SEC early on in the season, week 5. Second-ranked Bama at 20th-ranked Arkansas. Kickoff at 2:30 on CBS. Guys, be sure to tune in, and we will join you for the post-game show after the game. Enjoy your Saturday. Go get some coffee, college football game day, or just tune in. And guys, we'll see you later on. Thanks for tuning in to the Alabama Pregame Show, brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. Have a good day.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.